Greetings, everyone. Thank you for listening to another session of TEDCO Talks. This is Troy Lamel Stovall, the CEO of TEDCO, Maryland's home for innovation for early stage technology and life science investments. We have been honored. I have been honored to have a number of amazing guests on this show. We're not super 50th. Beyond 50, and so I couldn't be more excited. I want to send a shout out to Tammy Thomas and the whole marketing, development and marketing team who are behind the scenes making all the magic happen here. And so today is going to be, I think, a fun journey because I'm proud to be able to introduce not just a friend of TEDCO's, a friend of mine, but truly a man of the world. Truly a man who is a man of the world, and he leads an organization that's bringing the world to Maryland. And so I'm honored to introduce Eddie Resende, the CEO of the World Trade Center Institute here in Baltimore. Eddie, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Troy, for having me, and I'm excited for this discussion.
And it's just, you have an amazing journey, and we could just spend all of our time just on your journey. And I'm gonna start with a personal thing, but I'm gonna say "Hola, Eddie," in your native tongue. So one of the connective tissues between Eddie and I, as you'll learn here in a minute, he's from Brazil, and if you know the history of Brazil, they speak Portuguese, and the connective tissue is I started and managed and still work with a man named John Palmer. He was the founder of SkyTel, but that's not the point. John went on to become the U.S. ambassador to Portugal. And I had a chance to visit to visit him in Lisbon, and it's it's an amazing, and the connective tissue between Brazil and Portugal is very strong. So with that, Eddie, with that is our intro. Again, there's a lot about your story that's rich, and we can spend all the time. But remind me again, when did you come to this country?
So my family migrated here, Troy, in 1994. So at the time, it was economically speaking, not the greatest period in Brazil, and we're experiencing hyperinflation, high unemployment rate. And my mother, we have family in the U.S., and she said it's time for a change, and we need to go seek opportunities in other parts of the world. So I came with her in 1994, and a year later, my father and two older brothers joined us. So I've been here. Next year is going to be 30 years, and it's been an incredible journey, and I'm so thankful for all the opportunities that I've had.
So how old were you when you did that migration?
So I was 11.
Okay.
And moved north of Baltimore City to Harford County, which is for those of you not familiar with Harford County, it's a beautiful county, very rural. But not a lot of diversity. I think I went to high school, we had about 1,700 students, and I would say that the percentage of international students was probably about 2%. So it took a little while to get acclimated, but throughout my time in Harford County, made some friends, and still in touch with them to this day.
The reason I asked about your age is if you could, given your journey and given that if you could speak to, say, your 17-year-old self today, what would be 3 pieces of advice you give that 17-year-old, given the journey now, the 30-year journey that you've had here in the States?
No, great questions. I'll say first is if you ever have an opportunity, and not that I did at 17, but to travel to other countries and visit the world, you should do it. It's a great way to meet people from other cultures, and you end up understanding that you have a lot more in common. I would say secondly is looking at doing something that you're passionate about.
I love it. Yeah.
It's we're only in this earth for a limited amount of time. And we can choose, and we can decide how we're going to allocate our energy and our resources
and our time.
So there's so much goodness that you can do in the world, and I think that's how I've prioritized my career decisions, and I think the third is don't give up.
I like that.
You can, when I came to the US, little did I know at 11, moved here, didn't know many people. My mother would go on to start her own cleaning company, and my father would join that business, and eventually they got us all through college. But I wouldn't have known back then that 30 years later, I would be in this position that I feel so lucky to be in, and be able to impact the lives and careers of so many different individuals through our work. So if you believe in something, go after. You can do it. Don't give up. And I
I
think
love it.
that's very
I
important.
love it. I love it. I love it. Travel have passion and don't give up. That sounds like an entrepreneur. That sounds like something an innovation entrepreneur. So folks might be wondering this background I've got behind me. So as you know, recently we've been trying to make personalize our backgrounds to our guests. And so I'm gonna step just to the side here so you can see not just the kitchen. We'll talk about the kitchen in a minute, right, Eddie? But you'll see hopefully that a Brazilian flag is there. You know, we have to throw that in there. And back there, you can probably check out a little salsa dancing going on. So we do our homework, Eddie. We ain't just sitting here just doing these. We do a little homework on you. So I'm gonna let you figure out the Brazilian flag is obvious, right? But why you think we got the kitchen and the salsa dances up there? Oh, and by the way, those little cookies sitting over there, the little sweets over there.
Ooh, like
Yeah, see, we got a little homework we've done on you, brother. So why don't you tell the folks, first let's start with the kitchen. Why do you think we got the kitchen in this?
So I have always been passionate about cooking. I'll say that any free time I have, especially on the weekend, I love to just make something at home. I feel like there's something so special about just using your hands and being creative in the kitchen. But about 11 years ago, I decided that I was going to go to culinary school.
Mm-hmm.
And not with the intention of going into the restaurant and the food industry, but just growing up, I've always been curious about food, and my mother had a place where we would go in the summers in Brazil in the countryside or in the mountains, and it was a tiny little home. And at the time, we had wood burning stoves, which is rare to find these days. And as you can imagine, it's so difficult because you not only have to figure out the ingredients that go into the food, you have to make sure that you have the logs in there to keep the fuel going to make the food. But I was always so impressed and curious about cooking and making different things, and I would follow my mom around in the kitchen. And so 11 years ago, I had just started at the World Trade Center Institute. I said, I would love to just go do it on a part-time basis, an intensive program. And I learned about the culinary, the academy in Montgomery County, Institute of Academy, which unfortunately is no longer around. But it ended up being a former White House chef.
Wow.
It took us through a very French influenced culinary training. And I wouldn't say that that's my go-to when I'm in the kitchen, the French sauces and style, but I love making paellas. Paellas, that's my favorite dish.
Talk more about that.
Well, it's just so I learned it from a friend. It wasn't from school, but I love the fact that you've got this very wide open dish. You can use so many different ingredients, with the rice being the base, but it's the best when you're with family members and you can just share it and everybody
It's a
loves
communal
it.
dish. It's a communal dish.
Dish.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. So because we'll be on all day. So the dance.
So the dancing is when I met my wife, we were at Towson University, and soon after graduating, we moved to the city, and our favorite spot to go was this place called the 13th Floor at the Belvedere Hotel in Mount Vernon. And you would go up to the 13th floor, and you have this beautiful lounge with a view of the city. And every Friday they would have reggae night, and on Saturday was salsa night. And we would be there for every Saturday. It was our go-to place. And we don't do it as frequently now, but dancing has always been something that has given us a lot of joy, and we want to continue to do it and join other clubs that are available today. But yeah, that's the extent of the dancing and the salsa.
And you got a sweet tooth too, I understand.
I do, and the cookies, you're right. Those are my go-to. I believe it or not, chocolate chip cookies is something that's hard to find in Brazil. So when we came to
Really?
the US and
Really?
we had it here, right away I became a big fan. So I love chocolate chip cookies. So
So you folks can tell we can stay on this all day, but let's get a little business done while we're doing this TEDCO talk. So look, a lot of folks listening in particular, but even in Maryland, may not know about the World Trade Center Institute. So talk a little bit about that, kind of, and specific, some links to TEDCO and the economic development role that you play for the state of Maryland.
absolutely. So the World Trade Center, which is I'm in our offices now and at the World Trade Center building, downtown Baltimore, which a fun fact about this building is that it's the largest pentagonal building in the world.
Oh, that is a fun fact.
So we're right next to the aquarium, and
Yep.
some people may have walked by the building and seen all the flags around it. But a lot of people don't know that we are part of a network of 320 World Trade Centers.
There you go.
And it all started, this one, in 1989, and our governor at the time, Donald Schaefer, and our former chairman, Harold Adams, who was the CEO of a large architecture firm called RTKL, they both went on a trade mission to Asia, and they got there with the goal of promoting Maryland in this region as a destination for foreign direct investment. But they just thought they would sign contracts and come back home. And they realized that that's not how international business works, that you need to know the people, that you need to be proactive about establishing a relationship. You have to know the cultural nuances. So they came back and they brought the business community together, and they said, look, 95% of consumers reside outside of the US. We can't afford to just be a US based companies, and we have to open up markets overseas. But we need an institute or an entity that can provide education, support, connections to facilitate the process. So that's the genesis behind the World Trade Center here. And over the years, we have evolved tremendously as an organization. We are still a 501c3.
Yep.
We're the largest international business networking organization of its kind in the Mid-Atlantic region. And we have served about 3,500 companies that have taken advantage of either larger signature events, smaller series, our connections, business services, content library. But to your question, Troy, about our participation with TEDCO, it has also evolved and grown over the last year. And one of the new major initiatives for the World Trade Center Institute, in partnership with the Department of Commerce, is to create a Maryland Innovation Lab, where we will attract global startups and bring them to Maryland for a period of 10 weeks and connect them to companies here in the region so that they can collaborate and integrate some innovative technologies that's going to help solve many of the issues that our companies are facing now. And the first cohort of the lab is going to be all around the food manufacturing and distribution.
Outstanding. Yeah.
And these companies that are going to be participating, they're looking for the most advanced innovative technology. It could be, how do we leverage AI and machine learning to optimize certain processes? And while these global startups are going to come here, the reason that the state and WTCI is so energized about this program is that we're also hoping that these companies will choose to make Maryland their home, and that while they're here, they're going to have access to a network and investors. And we believe that our partnership with TEDCO is going to be critical to the success of this initiative and some others as well.
No, we're excited about what you're doing there. Look, like you said, for all of our even a startup, thinking about where markets could exist, and those markets sometimes don't exist in the United States, or the growth could be outside the United States. And even though obviously we have a mandate to create jobs in Maryland, it's not exclusive to Maryland. I think that's the people that people may miss about part of our TEDCO mission. And so we actually encourage our teams, our portfolio companies to grow. Obviously, they need to have a Maryland nexus, but we recognize that the growth will require them to look beyond Maryland and maybe look beyond the United States. And so we welcome that partnership. Eddie, I want to ask you, as you think about your journey that you've had, both the United States and at WTCI, talk to me about the one or two things you just are so proud of. You look back and you say, man, I'm so glad I was a part of that happening. And then the converse of that is, where are still some challenges? What are some things you still know you got to get done to fulfill that original intent of the WTCI?
Yeah, great questions, Troy. I would say there are a few things that I'm very proud of, and as I reflect on my time here at the World Trade Center. One, I would say, even coming to the U.S. and going through college, I've always felt that in Maryland, if you had a passion for international work, whether it's diplomacy or business, for many years, nothing existed that could give you some guidance and help open up doors and expose you to major issues impacting global trade and society.
Yeah.
One of the things that we did a few years ago is launch through the World Trade Center Institute 2 fellowships. One that's catered to high school students, called the Albrecht Fellowship for High School Students, and that's looking at youth diplomats. So if you are a high school student and you want to become a diplomat or work in diplomacy or global business, you can participate in this program, and you're going to learn about things like leveraging technology for global good. You're going to be looking at the role of China in the global economy. You're going to look at introduction to diplomacy and other issues. Climate migration is a big one. And then the other one, which we also launched, it's called Global Pathways for Students, and that's part of the Albrecht Fellows as well. And that's a little bit different, but the goal of that program is, how do we attract and retain global talent locally? So what we've learned was that a lot of talented college students would graduate and feel like they had to move to New York or London to work for a global company, and we said we need to change that. We're losing a lot of talent. So we created this and it's a 2-week intensive program. And we take these college students to major global companies such as Under Armour, McCormick, Stanley Black & Decker. And they're learning about opportunities. What are the skill sets that these companies are looking for? What are their challenges? How do I become a more competitive applicant if I do want to work at those companies?
Yep.
So as a result of that, over the 100+ people that have gone through those programs, about 70% are now employed in Maryland.
Oh wow, that's great. That's great.
So I'm very proud that we're just between the talent retention and also inspiring students to pursue certain careers where they're going to have the opportunity to tackle some of these major challenges.
Yeah,
like that's a source of joy for me. I would say the second one is that outside of WTCI, I'm actively involved with another Baltimore-based organization called the Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Service. And they work with providing the migrant and refugee communities with needed services.
That's outstanding.
And the organization has grown tremendously. Senator Barbara McCoskey was influential in bringing them from New York to Baltimore, and now it's led by Krish Vignarajah, which is this an incredible leader that you should have on your show as well, Troy.
Fair enough.
But
noted.
The fact that I am an immigrant myself, and I have had the honor and opportunity to grow and have access to so many opportunities that I wouldn't elsewhere. I've always been passionate about how do we work with, and you look at Baltimore City, right, Troy, or and other cities around the US too, you got a population decline. But we're seeing now what happened in Afghanistan and Ukraine, and we're seeing more people moving to our cities. These are individuals that have that entrepreneurial vision and spirit, and immigrants. If you look at the data, they're twice as likely to start businesses. They're 60% more likely to engage in global trade. So I'm proud of the work that I've done with LIRS, but I'm also committed to how can we help immigrant entrepreneurs to make sure they have the education, the connection, the capital to launch their businesses and make a difference in the world.
Outstanding, Eddie. Congratulations. Thank you for all that you do. Again, we could spend all day talking, I can tell. One of the things that we've been focused on, I know you have too, is this notion of how to make sure that everyone is participating. You just talked about immigrants and making sure that they are participating. And, the United States, the definition of diversity primarily is driven off of race and gender. And the inherent nature of being international is that there is the diversity there because of the diversity of cultures. How do you marry those two things? Because when people, I know a lot of my friends that are from outside of the United States see diversity very differently than the way we talk about it here in the United States, because they're used to seeing diverse cultures because they travel, frankly, a lot more in some cases than we do here in the United States. And so how do you marry those two things to bring that benefit of that diversity, international diversity, but also the diversity of race and gender that we're struggling with in the United States?
Yeah, I think you just have to make it, and you have to be intentional about it, right?
Yeah.
An effort. You look at even in our organization, when I joined, I think we had one female representative on our board of directors, and now we're at about 50%. So we've made progress, but again, it's the effort never stops, and it's ongoing. And anything that we do, we look for. If there's a fee associated with it, how do we raise money to make sure that we lower the entry barriers for individuals and provide them the support to participate in certain things? But I'm grateful that we have a board of directors that's been very supportive of our initiatives in diversifying everything that we do. There's a lot more work that we need to do, including with our own staff. But I think partnering with the right organizations and the right players, that's also key. We don't know. What we've learned also is that there are so many deserving individuals, companies, even in our own state, in different counties, that we a few years ago didn't know that existed, and they're here, and they are creating jobs, and they need to participate. And having the right connections and partners in different counties and city, that's going to help us to make sure that everything that we're doing, that we have the right representation.
Eddie, thanks a lot, man. I want to just thank you again for your commitment to Baltimore, commitment to Maryland. I'm going to say, I hope I get this right, obrigado. It's Portuguese for thanks. So thank you again for your time today, your commitment to the state, to Baltimore, and to TEDCO. So thanks again. And to all the folks who are listening, appreciate you spending time with us today. We always appreciate your time, appreciate the comments you give to us. But as I always say, stay safe, stay sane, stay healthy and blessed. Take care.